Well, Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, most all the teachers were white at the time when I was in school. So you had you had one school that was in Germantown, which was all black, and it was Hill School, and they had black students and black teachers, but none of the other schools had black teachers, even when from elementary to high school, you never had a black teacher. Um, it was tough sometimes. Like in elementary, it was fine. You had a lot of black students and everybody, and all were in the same class. But you had the white teachers, and the white teachers were very nice. I didn't notice any differences. And then in junior high school, the same way. But wasn't until I hit senior high school when there were very few African American students. In fact, one class I had another African American student, and in another class I had two. My history class I had none. So, but in some of the classes in senior high school, some of the teachers let you know they didn't like you, so you just made up your mind you were just going to do your work and get through the class, because what else could you do? Well, I really didn't realize that I was the first among many. I just knew that I wanted to become independent, so I knew that if I was going to be able to be independent, that I would be able to had to go to college. So I knew I had to keep my grades up because my parents didn't have money to send me to college, and I'd have to win a scholarship. So at that time, you had to work twice as hard as an African American student. And I kept my grades up, but I really didn't realize until later on that none of my other family members had gone, none of the other siblings had gone to college, and I don't know why, but I had won the scholarship, so my mother and father didn't have to pay. Well, going to Cheney was really an eye-opener and exciting, too, because it's the first, I was enjoying going to college anyhow, but the campus was beautiful, and you could relate with the students, and you had African-American teachers, which we never had. The courses then, which was exciting, I never knew my history. I didn't know why some people didn't like you. Why wouldn't you like a person because of the color of their skin? It wasn't until I got to Cheney and you had the history, African American history, and you learned what had happened. You just never learned it in school. You had 2 days of Black history, and that was all. But you learned your history, and it was exciting to know where you came from, that you came from royalty, you had quality people who had come, and Africa was a beautiful place, and that you didn't wish to come here, but you were taken here. So it was like a brand new world, and I was excited. Charles Carroll of Carrollton was the school I was assigned to when I was given a job here in Baltimore. I was excited to get a job and to really, but I was surprised that when I came to Baltimore that the schools were divided. You had African American schools where you had African American teachers and some white, but most of the white schools had white teachers, and African American schools had African American teachers. And that shocked me because I didn't know that happened because it wasn't that way in Philadelphia. But then I enjoyed it because there I was able to work with African American black, children, and the parents worked with parents, and the staff was really great, and the principal was just so sharp. He was Mr. Sims was a quality principal. You worked hard, you worked very hard, but I had been prepared for that when I up at Cheney. You learned what you were supposed to do, so it was exciting, and I worked there for 10 years. Um, when I was at Charles Carroll of Carrollton, I knew of people who were poor, but the children there at Charles Carroll of Carrollton were really impoverished, and in order to understand them, I started taking counseling guidance courses at Loyola College to understand and be able to help the children better. So at that time was a time when schools were being integrated. The law had been passed. The Brown versus the Board of Education had passed then. And of course in Baltimore was the first sit-ins where people could eat at restaurants and things. They could take food out, but they couldn't sit at the table. So some of the students had started sitting there. Well, when they integrated they had to integrate the schools. It was necessary to send some African American teachers and students to the all-white schools. I was a counselor then. Dr. Stern had decided that we needed to have some elementary counselors in the public schools. And since I had taken all the courses, he asked would I be willing to go. And then they sent me to Mordecai Gist, was basically all white. And they had just started bringing in a few African American students, and that was necessary, and that was great because I was able to help to the teachers and the students to relate to each other. The principal was fantastic; she was really good, and we had a team there where we had the nurse, the assistant principal, a social worker, and the counselor, which I was a counselor. So we were able to really relate and help the students relate to each other. When I was the counselor at Mordecai Gist, I had formed a program with parents and teachers, and we had workshops and we worked together. And then the assistant superintendent in charge of elementary schools had come and watched me work with some of the students and with the teachers at Mordecai Gist, and she had asked me to take the exam, qualifying exam, which I really didn't want to, but I did. And then, which she didn't tell me that the top 5 automatically were promoted, and that's how I ended up going to Berkeley School. Well, she had something in mind anyhow, because Barclay School were having difficulty keeping teachers, and the principal and the teachers weren't working together. And so every year you have 50 to 75% of the teachers would leave the school. The community people weren't coming into the school because they didn't get along with the principal. So when I went there as an assistant principal, and when I was shocked because the teachers were excellent teachers, but the principal was marking them like just average. And there wasn't this relationship between the teacher and the principal and the parents. The parents weren't even coming in the school. And I never heard of parents not coming in and seeing what's happening to their children in the school. Because parents are supposed to know what's happening when in the school. So I started meeting with the parents and inviting them in. We started having beautification Saturdays where the parents would come up, and we started and do work on the garden outside the school, inside the school, fixing up the chairs in the auditorium, squeaking wheels. And anyhow, and then the teachers, I started working with the teachers because that was my role as curriculum coordinator as assistant principal. So with the teachers, I started meeting in groups and working out a way that we could work alone. And so Barclay school in Barclay lived in the Barclay community. That's what it was. But you had great parents in there, and they started coming in. I really enjoyed that. Okay, after the years after you started working with the children, as has happened all over, the curriculum started going down. You started having, they kept changing what they were teaching children, the new math, the new this, and so forth and so on. And the children really weren't really being educated on the level where the parents, we had a curriculum committee made up of parents, students, and the principal. And we decided maybe we could find something else that will help. The governor had put me on his, not governor, excuse me, I'm sorry. The mayor had put me on his committee. It was a Fund for Educational Excellence. And this committee was made up of lawyers, wealthy men and women who wanted to help the schools, but they didn't want to give the money to the superintendent. They wanted to go into the classroom so that if the teacher wrote a plan that wanted to promote something in their classroom, they wrote it up. They would turn it into us. We would read it. If we thought that it was worth being promoted, we then would fund them. So the money went to the teacher, not to the superintendent of schools. And so that, while I was working with that, Bob Embry, who was the head of the Able Foundation, asked, I had been complaining about what wasn't going on in the schools. So he said, would I like to visit a school, the Calvert School? And I said, yes. And so he took me over, and I met the headmaster, which Calvert is a private school of very rich kids. And I just fell in love with it, what they were doing. The kids were getting those skills that they needed. They were performing on a number that was just wonderful. So I asked could some of the parents on the curriculum committee go visit the Calvert curriculum. The school is called the Calvert School. And the curriculum had been written by one headmaster. And anyhow, when the parents went and some of the teachers went with me to visit, they were so excited about what they were seeing happening in that school. So Bob Embry said, well, Trudy, if you can get the school system to okay it, I will give you the additional money that's needed to go into to get the Calvert curriculum into Berkeley. I did not know that it would be that hard. It took 8 years fighting everybody, but we finally got it. And when we got it, the kids just zoomed. And they were doing so well that the parents came and said, well, you'll have to help me with some of these things. I don't know how to do them. So we then got people, we set up programs for the parents to train parents. Cal Ripken, he was a member of the Orioles, and the Orioles had adopted, Oriole baseball team had adopted the Berkeley School. Now, the Calvert curriculum is so well ordered. The children in pre-kindergarten, you have a whole curriculum, but the parents or an adult has to read to that child at least a half an hour every night. They have to work with them on noticing what's happening around the house. They have to talk to them. And a lot of our children here, the parents really never talked with them, never took them any special place. And they were given an assignment every night. Walk your child to the store, talk to them about different things in the store, and list 2 fruit or 3 fruit, or list 5 things that the child sees in the store. And then the child has to talk about them and then talk about them in the class every night. And this started those children, especially children in the inner city. It started them really recognizing things, classifying things, and being able to later on start writing, because you start writing, the children would start writing their first letters and the cursive writing in kindergarten. And they would write a sentence about where they went. So the parents would have to if they just walk around the block, what did you see? Because the average child, when you see them coming in the beginning of the year in the inner city, you say, what did you see on the way to school? Nothing. What color was the sky? I don't know. How many children did you see? So you really have to, especially children in the inner city where parents don't talk that much, you really have to get them talking, being aware of where they are, and then classifying things and choosing what they like. Did you like what you saw? What's one thing you saw this morning that you liked? And so that's where the Calvert curriculum was all documented. And but this was for wealthy kids. And I just wanted our children to learn the secret of success. And they weren't getting it in the school system. One of the things we found out was that at the Calvert, there were a number of things that were included in the Calvert curriculum that cost a lot of money. And so the Johns Hopkins University, which was in our area, was very close to Berkeley School, and we used to work with them, and they would come to the school, and they helped provide some activities, money for activities. The Able Foundation. When we went on in the summertime, the summer program, we got money from different people, and in fact, when our children were tested, after the first year, the scores were so high, and then after the second year of the Calvert curriculum, the children, what happened was it hit the newspaper, and then after hitting the newspaper, it hit the New York Times. That's how it hit the New York Times, because the reporter, while I was in, when one of the reporters came down from New York, because they were having a program about the schools and how they were working, what were some of the programs they were having, blah, blah, blah. And what happened was they sent one of the reporters, Dave, I can't think of the person, Dave, came down and saw what was happening with the children in the pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, first and second grade at that time. And he was shocked, because he said, my kid's in school and he's not learning that kind of thing. So it's a big article in the New York Times. After that, it hit the New York Times. Then I started getting calls from schools around the nation to come and visit Berkeley. So we started getting people coming in from all over, and people came from Japan and England and 2 other places, but they came from around the world to visit the school, because here was a school in the inner city, and they were doing all these great things, and so that's how we were able to keep it going. Every school is part of that community, and it represents the quality of education that the children will receive from that community. And the only way that parents can know what's going on is to come into that school and see what's happening. I have said to every parent who would come to the school, you must come and be involved. You must come and spend some time. No one should put their child in the school unless they know what's happening. Then I ask the parents, what are things you like to do to help make the school better? Do you like playing with the children on the playground at lunchtime? Do you like to sit in the classroom and work with a child who needs additional help? Do you like painting? Do you have things that you can offer to this school to make it better? So, but it's the purpose of every school to be its best, so that every parent can feel comfortable in taking their child into that school. And they could go to another school if they want to, but they should feel free to be able to walk their child to that school and know what's going on in that school. But they also should be part of it. They should also be able to offer suggestions. They should also be able to, even if you're raising, like the parents would raise funds that we needed for in the kindergarten. Not just one child would have it. Every child in that kindergarten class got what was needed, so that if their parents weren't able to pay for it, you raised the money and got it so every child felt comfortable that they had the same thing. So it is, a school is part of the community. It's no good, no better, no worse than the people who live there and demand the best for their children. Before when we started with our curriculum committee, which was made up for community parents and so forth, and students, we had some of our students were being sent to a school where they were very uncomfortable and things were happening. So our parents came and we fought. First, we fought for the gifted and talented program. We went to Washington and found out that the Elementary Secondary Education Act included the gifted students. If you notice today, the public schools all have classes for children with special needs, slower learning students. Well, the gifted students have special needs too. So that is written in the Elementary Education Secondary Act. But the regular public schools don't put it there. They do in the county. They don't do it in the urban schools. So what happened was that we had set up a dinner and invited the Board of School Commissioners and our executive officers to the school. We listed the number of children in that school who were advanced and who needed additional education. And we wanted to have not additional education, but who were way advanced more than what was expected in the school system. So we wanted a gifted and talented program at Barclay. And we showed them why. And so after showing them why, then we met the board and we finally got it. We got it that same year. Okay, the other thing that happened was we noticed that when the children got to 6th grade, that what was happening, they went to a school where they dropped. So we fought. We asked, why couldn't we extend a middle school, a middle school to Barclay, to go from pre-K to grade 8? And that we fought for a while, but it didn't take long because we wanted to make sure that our children who were doing so well when they finished elementary would be able to have the middle schools to continue to push them on, because children tend to, when they get to that teenage year, they tend to kind of slough. And I started having sessions. I used to have what we called little sessions where I had groups of children who would meet. We would meet, talk about things, why things go, how things go on, what's happening in your world, and so forth. We even talked about during the time when the boys used to start wearing their pants down, things like that. We talked about life. And in those sessions, the kids really would ask about anything, and it was no child could take out of the meeting, out of our rap sessions, we called them rap sessions. You could not question or talk about what anybody talked about. You could not take out of the meeting, this was our rap session. And others who came in for a rap session, and children would put in my box, Miss Wynn, we need a rap session, you know. So it was really great because it helped them to get past. Here they were, their body was changing, their life was changing, and they had questions. And I would bring the nurse in, I'd have different people at the rap session so that the children could ask them any question. In the urban communities, the children have not learned the secret of success. That they live from day to day, and when you live in the wealthy communities, in the community, out in the county, those children, when they leave school, they know the secret of success because they have a curriculum that teaches them what to do, how to do it, and what to expect. To know that if they have reached a certain level, they can, if they don't have any money, they could get this scholarship. Those children that went to Calvert when I was there, they got scholarships to Calvert. They left Barclay and in the 8th grade, and all the private schools picked them up here in Baltimore, and all of them went on to college, which was what I was pushing for all along, where what was happening years ago, where many of the kids moved along because they were held accountable, and the parents were held accountable. Today, we're missing that in the inner cities, in where most of the kids, a lot of the kids live who come through. A lot of the parents who have enough money are sending their children to private school. But the point of it is, the goal of every teacher and every principal is to have, when the children leave school, is to know the secret of success and reach for it. All right. Today, public education has dropped to number 25 in the world. And a lot of parents are teaching children at home. They're getting charter schools, which aren't that good. You have 1 and 2 who are very good. But the thing that is really important is that the schools become more invested in children, more ordered, so that at the end of each grade level, children should be able to handle certain basic skills, no matter where they come from. They could be from the inner city or in the middle class area. They all need to know that by the end of pre-kindergarten, children should know so much. By the end of kindergarten, first, all the way through school. And it should be going toward children to be able to know the secret of success, to be able to read, write, and compute, who speak in the proper language, who know how to write. Children today don't know how to write a paragraph, to write a sentence, to know that a sentence has a subject and a predicate with a verb or an adverb, who know the parts of speeches, which children don't know, and these have to be added back into our curriculum. They also need to start having history and science and math. They need history of the United States history. They need world history. They need science. Why and where things grow. What do you do? They need to know about their planet. Some children today are not aware of their world around them and how they can use it to improve the quality of their life. I think the one thing that parents should, and the teachers should talk to the students too, the purpose of going to school is to know more when you leave. To know every day you should be a little smarter, should have learned something, should pay attention, to ask questions if you don't know, to be aware of what school is about. And when you finish the daytime, you should read at night. You should read a lot. They really should have real and vicarious experiences. When you go out and see something out and you're not aware of what it is, they should be able to look it up, to go to libraries, to investigate, to be able to plant seeds, watch them grow. They should be involved in all of their learning. And most of all, to read, learn how to write, and communicate with others. Because education is the only way you're going to be successful. And a lot of the children who leave school aren't aware that they've wasted that time and no one has called them to order. So I would offer to every student that their secret of being whomever they wanted to be is up to them. They have to start the day they enter that classroom and demand more and more and more from that teacher.